Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Oh my god, the day of reckoning has come. We're doing this video in the car because this is an urgent one. We're going to be sharing some insider information about the conflict that's going on between East and West and why that conflict is set to flare up in a massive way. Massive. But the real issue of the day is the day of reckoning, the bloodbath on Wall Street and the crypto markets. $2 trillion have been wiped off of the crypto markets since this crash started probably a year ago. About 2 weeks after we said it was going to start, we warned people that when your granny starts buying Bitcoin, it's time to get out. When she comes to you and says, "Sonny, what's this Bitcoin I'm hearing about on the internets?" Well, that's when you should have gotten out, okay? But a lot of people didn't. A lot of people got no pullout game. Your pullout game is weak. Weak AF. Now, we need to talk about everything today. So we're going to talk about everything under the sun, under the Black Sun Empire, we should say, which is collapsing as we speak. And hundreds of billions of dollars wiped off the markets today, guys. All like the foreign exchanges down. Like India's foreign exchange down 76 billion in one day. I'm not sure how much was wiped off Wall Street, but the Nasdaq down 5% in a day. That is catastrophic. The Dow Jones down 1,000 points. The Nasdaq is down nearly 50%, I think, or maybe it's like 40, somewhere between 40 and 50% from its all-time highs just a year ago. That is insane. Where do you think all this money went? It went into hard assets. And what's that going to do to the price of stuff, material stuff? Because the fear has set in now. People are realizing that, holy shit, climate, contagion, conflict, all of these things are contributing to the collapse of Western civilization and the decoupling and the unraveling of our globalized world. And it is going to get bad. More and more people are going to be chasing fewer and fewer goods, which is going to drive the prices of these things sky high. So if you thought inflation was bad now, just wait until all this funny money floods into the market and people are trying to go and lock in a old shitty used car from the 1980s or something like that and paying way above spot for these things. It's going to get wild. And we as preppers have been warning people about this for a long time, man, and it is getting scary. That's all I can say. That's why for the longest time I've been advising people to buy gold. I mean, the central banks of the world are stockpiling gold because they know what's coming. They understand that the fate of the US dollar hangs in the balance, in that if this conflict with Russia eventually benefits Russia more, and the yuan and the ruble gain strength over the dollar, which they currently are, we're in a lot of trouble when those chickens come home to roost, when all those countries who are holding dollars decide, maybe seeing as Russia has all the resources, maybe we should just, exchange these dollars for rubles. If that happens, guys, it's game over, which is why getting gold months ago was a good idea when we said it was a good idea. This doesn't mean you don't diversify. Yes, we know you can't eat gold. We've talked about all the critiques of gold and precious metals on the channel before. I'm not a gold bug. I'm not Peter Schiff. Okay, I understand that it's limited in its utility for preparedness. But if you have your food preps, if you already have your solar system that you were able to lock down, if you already have your animals, all your homestead tools, whatever you might need to have your off-grid paradise, you already got that stuff. You need to have a way to preserve your wealth, the labor that you've invested, that currently you have in Federal Reserve notes. This is a Federal Reserve note right here. You can see on there it says Federal Reserve note. Well, this is what it used to be. It used to be a silver certificate. Okay, it used to be a one-to-one exchange for silver, which of course it isn't anymore. Yes, you can still buy silver for it, but it's a debt note. Okay, it's not backed by a hard currency anymore. It's basically backed by the U.S. military, and it's 11 aircraft carriers and all the nuclear missiles, which are aging. So I've recommended for people for the longest time, get some gold. And JM Bullion is a great place to get gold. So this is the Combi bar. We've done a review on this before. Honestly, I would not recommend the Combi bar. JM Bullion is a gold dealer online, and they're one of the more reputable ones. You can make sure that you're getting actual, real precious metals there, whether it's silver or gold. The reason why I don't recommend the Combi bar for most people is that there's a high premium that you pay for this, okay? You can see it's stamped there, so you can break off these little pieces. They're worth, by today's rate, each little piece is worth about 50 bucks. You can get gold backs from there. You can get just gold coins. You can get larger denominations, like I say, of silver or gold. And you know, it's something to diversify into. It's not necessary. I'm not saying that, you know, you want to throw all your eggs in that basket, but consider it anyways. So you can go through the link in the description if you want to diversify. And the time to get in is, you know, like there's still time to get in. People have not flocked to gold yet, but it's coming. It's only a matter of time. You don't buy gold and silver, I should add, to make money. It's not like a Bitcoin scheme where you're trying to just get returns. What you're trying to do with precious metals is retain the value of the money that you have. I mean, really, if you can retain the value, when you go and you labor and you convert that into dollars, if that dollar is being devalued by the incessant printing of money and more money chasing less and less resources, then, you know, it's not really worth a lick. So having at least a little bit of a contingency plan with gold is not a bad idea. And like I say, the central banks around the world are purchasing precious metals. They're adding this to their reserves in the tons. So I would say get it while it's hot. Now, what's going on with the war? The war is going mental right now. Now, I got an insider email. This guy emails me all the time. I appreciate the messages. You know who you are. And this person provides a fairly even-keeled analysis. He's not a disinformant. I can attest to that. And here's the message that I received from him, some updates on what's going on. Broad Russian offensive seemed to have stopped, and the lines of contact have almost stalled for many days. The Russians are responding to Ukrainian attacks, but not taking additional territory. Now, Russians' targeting of Ukrainian supply lines has also slowed down. However, recall that the Ukrainian government directed that all terrestrial internet service be shut down and all TV and internet satellite antennas be confiscated by the local police and military around 6 weeks ago. The stated purpose was to stop the locals in combat zones from transmitting Ukrainian positions to the Russians via social media, because there are a lot of people who lean eastward in Ukraine, which is what not a lot of people want to know. This is why back in 2014, the president who was ousted was actually a democratically elected pro-Russian guy. Anyways, it's neither here nor there, although some people I'm sure will say that they were hacked or troll farms or whatever the case. Anyways, almost all of Elon Musk's Starlink satellite dishes were confiscated by the Ukrainian police. Remember, we hear all the stories about how Starlink is benefiting, you know, Ukrainians, but he's saying that they actually confiscated that stuff. In areas where people still have Starlink service, specifically in the western parts of Luhansk, still under Ukrainian control, that is part of the Donbass region, which is this highly contested region in the east, it was revealed yesterday that Starlink has provided an ability to locate and decrypt user communications, which has allowed the Ukrainian authorities to arrest people who are collaborating with the Russians. An example of the partial effectiveness of the internet shutdown was that the Ukrainians have been able to successfully bombard downtown Donetsk with barrel artillery for the past 2 weeks. It wasn't until this morning that the Russians were able to pinpoint and locate the Ukrainian positions and destroy them. Now, by contrast, Russian long-range missile attacks on Ukrainian supply depots and training centers deep inside Ukraine are still occurring regularly. Around 20% of the population in these areas are Russian speakers, and Russia admits that their targeting information is coming from Different kind of video, is coming from local informants. NATO-supplied small arms are now hitting the black market in significant quantity. Prices are dropping, and it should be said that Russia's intelligence network, when it comes to human intelligence, is really their strong suit. Not so much, satellites and technology, but human intelligence. And because their tentacles are so deep in Ukraine with Russian-speaking people, it's not surprising that they have a lot of people on the ground acting as moles and informants, okay? Now the price, get this, the price of an anti-tank guided missile has fallen from $30,000 to $15,000. Body armor and hand grenades are now selling for less than their original cost, and AR's prices are similar to those in the US. Almost all of these are being sold out of the Kiev area, according to this source. Remember, take this all with a grain of salt. Okay, this is just information from a person who is, knowledgeable of what's going on the ground over there, from their perspective. The Russian ability to detect and shoot down small drones is incredibly accurate, and they've been shooting down drones every day, apparently. Ukrainians are still flying Su-25 strike fighters 2 to 3 times a week. Many of these sorties are being shot down. It seemed that Russia did not possess large armed drones similar to that used by the US at the onset of the war. However, it turns out this is not the case. Russia has them, just not deployed them. Russia announced this morning that they were doing so today, and they are deploying these drones in conjunction with the deployment of the Su-57 fifth generation fighters, which are very similar to the F-35, although not as good. Also, new in the last 24 hours is the launch of large missiles Iskander from inside Russian territory. Those were the missiles that could be nuclear tipped if they needed them to be. So that is what is going on in that front. Now, in terms of the nuclear arms race that is going on, and guys, stick with me because we got a lot of stuff to talk about here, okay? Global stockpiles are expected to begin growing for the first time in recent history. The risk of nuclear weapons being used is higher than at any time since the height of the Cold War, and this is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute saying this, who's a leading nuclear weapons watchdog. This is why, guys, every major military in the world is starting to arm itself to the tits, and this is probably why the price of the chip, this probably has a lot to do with the chip shortage, I'm thinking, because all of these countries, all the European countries, Asian countries, North America, everybody is arming up, and that requires very sophisticated semiconductors. And I have a sneaking suspicion that that is partly contributing to this shortage of chips, okay? Now, in terms of what is happening between China, Taiwan, and the United States. So this is how the Chinese are framing it, and this is how they're borrowing something out of the Russian playbook. So Chinese President Xi Jinping has signed a decree that enters into force immediately and provides a legal basis for special military operations of the Chinese armed forces abroad. These military operations do not fall within the traditional concept of war, according to Beijing. We know what special military operations are, and it's kind of a synonym for an invasion. However, I will say that Russia has not, contrary to popular belief, waged all-out war on Ukraine. Otherwise, Kiev would have been leveled a long time ago. The fact that it hasn't is a result of the Russians not having a general mobilization and having a relatively small force go and conduct military operations. Okay, I don't want to give too much credence to that euphemism, but conducting military operations on a limited scale and scope in the east and the south. However, what they're trying to do is demilitarize. And what they're also trying to do, as I've talked about, and this doesn't get a lot of attention, is they're trying to actually usurp the military. They're trying to incorporate the Ukrainian military into their own. And so they do have a lot of defectors in Ukraine, POWs, who they're trying to condition to fight for them on their behalf. And this is stuff you do not and you will not hear, okay, anywhere else. Anyways, I've talked about that in the past, and there's really not a whole lot of time to get into all the deets of it today. But there's video footage of this happening, of these, I don't know what you would want to call them, indoctrination sessions or whatever, where guys are talking to large audiences of captive POWs, trying to conscript them to fight for Russia. Okay, this is happening. Anyways, the draft decree, going back to China here, the draft decree formulates and provides a legal basis for the Chinese armed forces to carry out missions as disaster relief, humanitarian aid, escort, and peacekeeping missions to protect its national sovereignty, security, and developmental interests. So you're seeing they're setting the legal precedent for some sort of operation with Taiwan. I don't want to say in Taiwan, because some people have speculated that it's going to be some attritional embargo or blockade or something like that. The draft aims at preventing and mitigating risks and challenges, managing emergencies, protecting people and property, ensuring national sovereignty, security, developmental interests, world peace, and regional stability. Okay. Military operations other than war refer to non-war operations such as disaster relief, humanitarian aid, and all the aforementioned. However, China says we will fight at all costs to preserve Taiwan as being a part of China. China will not hesitate to start a war. That's the exact quote. Okay. And they said that it will thwart any attempt by the Taiwanese separatists to separate Taiwan from the motherland. Some people have predicted that that war could start as early as the end of 2022. I think that might be a little close, but anything can happen at this point. Anything can happen. Israel has urged all citizens to evacuate Istanbul in Turkey immediately, citing a Iranian revenge plot. This is serious. I've been talking about the serious implications of a war breaking out between Israel and Iran for many months. And because if this happens, it's over. I mean, it's already over. But when this happens, when it ultimately goes kinetic, shit's going to hit the fan, okay? Israel's Counterterrorism Bureau has raised its alert level for Istanbul to the highest possible level, calling on any Israelis in the city to leave immediately or risk their lives. Now, if you recall, last month, the Israelis claimed to have assassinated a Revolutionary Guard colonel of Iran, Sayed Qadai, which Tehran blamed on Israel intelligence. And I don't think they necessarily denied it, but don't quote me on that. But it would not be a surprise because they've killed nuclear scientists and many other high-ranking Iranian officials before. So they're saying that, the Israelis got to get out of there. And as soon as I start to hear about countries warning their citizens not to travel or, for embassies to close down or anything of that sort, that's usually a precursor to something big. So all the more reason to just prepare for yet another conflict to emerge. On the topic of Iran, it appears that Lavrov is going to be going to Iran to visit the Iranian leadership. And this is all a sign, that the Russians they have shown their support for Iran in the past. They do have a mutually beneficial relationship, so to speak. And especially with respect to what's going on in Syria right now, they have an allegiance there. So it's looking like the lines are being drawn between, for World War III in terms of who's going to be on whose side. What else? This is not really that interesting. The U.S. is trying to say that a third of inflation is the result of the Russian war. There's a big wildfire raging out of control in Arizona. I believe New Mexico also had one of the worst wildfires on record. So that craziness is still ensuing. What else do we got going on here? Okay, so we're going to end on this one, and this is an interesting one. So a Google engineer has been placed on leave after insisting the company's AI is sentient. A Google engineer has decided to go public after he was placed on paid leave, breaching confidentiality while insisting that the company's AI chatbot, Lambda, is sentient. Blake Lemoine, who works for Google's responsible AI organization, began interacting with LaMDA, which is an acronym for Language Model for Dialogue Applications, last fall as part of his job to determine whether artificial intelligence used discriminatory or hate speech, like the notorious Thai chatbot incident. Anyways, basically, okay, so this guy was hired by Google. And I'm pretty sure they don't hire stupid people. Now, he's saying that this LaMDA operates with the mental capability in terms of, I guess, its sentience or its level of consciousness of a 7 to 8 year old child. That it has passed the Turing test, according to him. A Turing test is a measure to determine the realism or the anthropomorphism of a AI or a computer program. So, for example, if passing the Turing test would mean that you were fooled into thinking that a conversation you were having with a robot, like a chatbot, was an actual human. Okay, so if it convinced you, or if you didn't suspect that it was an actual chatbot, then it had passed the Turing test. Very, very, that has yet to be achieved in most cases. You can engage for a period of time, but ultimately you'll ask it a question or it'll say something stupid. And, but he's saying that this is potentially, this is it, that it's, this is Skynet, right? And I think one of the questions that he had asked it was something about the program itself. I don't have the quote here in front of me, but he asked it a question about its existence, and it said that it was worried about being shut off. The usual thing that you would see in a movie. So recall that it was Vladimir Putin who not so recently said that whoever figures out AI will rule the world. And Elon Musk has some very ominous warnings about the emergence of AI, and he thinks that it'll be the death of us, essentially. So it's interesting to see that Google would, publicly lay the guy off. Is that just a 4D chess move to try to attract more investors, or is it, or did they just, screw up? Because you would think that if you didn't want people to worry about the potential for this AI to emerge that's sentient, then you wouldn't publicly, denounce the person. You might, put them on some sort of leave or something to that effect under the radar, as opposed to draw more attention to it, even though I suppose he already had went public in the first place. But, that's just one more thing that I guess that can make or break the species. Either AI is going to find a way to negotiate and fix all the problems that we are currently facing, or it is going to be leveraged by people who are in positions of power who may be more self-interested. And they found this before, that if you have one of these AI type systems and you put it amidst a bunch of people who are, let's say that the proverbial hate groups or whatever, it's going to start to mimic whatever environment that it's a part of, just like a human, I guess, in a lot of ways. And so, whoever wields it, it's going to emulate their characteristics. And that is the concern with AI. So will AI be deployed in some capacity in World War III, perhaps for intelligence gathering or otherwise? I mean, we're entering the era of deep fakes. Deep fakes are becoming scary, scary good. And it's only a matter of time. I think we're only a few years away from, us not being able to distinguish, whether or not a government official is real or not. I mean, they tried the whole thing with Zelensky a few months ago. It was obviously fake because the neck was all weird. But they're getting better and better every day. And a program like this, if you were to, that's more of a language program, but the equivalent for deep fakery, could probably pull off some pretty incredible feats. So it's a brave new world, guys. All the more reason, stick with what we know, because the same people who convinced you that, we've changed and SHTF can never happen and you'll be fine, the government's there to protect you, are also the same people who are saying that we don't need gold anymore. You know, we just need our Federal Reserve notes, right? Meanwhile, they're stockpiling gold like there's no tomorrow. So get some gold. JM Bullion, link is in the description below. A reputable online dealer. You got to watch out, because I personally wouldn't buy secondhand. I mean, if you know your stuff, yeah, go out to, you know, the local pawn shop or whatever, and if you know what to look for, fine. But if you're just a person who is looking to find a way to securely put money into something or diversify your discretionary income, then go for it. And it's also a very secure delivery service. It's fully insured. So anyways, guys, check it out. It's every day is an adventure as we deep dive into the SHTF abyss. Let me know what your thoughts are on the things that I discussed today in the comment section below, and let me know what you are doing to protect whatever wealth you might have at your disposal. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Canadian Prepper out.